and thank you very much for connecting and attending the class. I hope on your location. I hope we have no problem with the connection. I hope that the internet is okay and the technology is permits us to continue with the class, and it's possible the dog, I also hope we've no big interruption with the dog as well. So today we will continue very similar with the structure from yesterday. I think we have similar people today from yesterday, so not too many new people, so the structure will be very similar. We will continue with the article from yesterday, and also we will continue with the video from yesterday to analyze the vocabulary and the grammar, okay, and the possibility to connect and to participate in the class is an option, okay. So here on the left you have the ID, the meeting ID for Zoom, and the passcode. So during the class, if you want to connect and to participate, to practice some speaking, this is definitely a possibility, and we can have a general conversation and just to introduce yourself, and I can try to help with the pronunciation or the little corrections, okay. So that's possible if you are logged into Zoom. You can connect and participate in the meeting, okay. That is number one, and this is the agenda, as I said. So the introduction document will be very similar. The grammar introduction document, that's very important, and after the introduction we will continue to the article from the newspaper from yesterday, and after the article from the newspaper we have a video that is the same from yesterday as well, the next step, the next clip from the video, okay. And we also have a list of phrasal verbs and idioms to continue as well. So this is the general structure at the moment. It's a very good opportunity to teach for free during the difficult year, and everybody has to stay at home, and people have lost jobs and changing careers, and English maybe is a very important part for you to get a new job or to study or to change your position, okay. And it's a good opportunity for me to work again, because in May I stopped because it was difficult to work from home, and finally I have a little space to work again, and it's a very good opportunity for me also to know new people and to grow online on Facebook, on Instagram, Twitter, etc. It's a very good opportunity. For example, last night I was searching Instagram and I was investigating the hashtags, and it's an incredible technique, and I'm only learning about the hashtags on Instagram, and this was the reason for my post this morning on Instagram. You can see here, this is my Instagram page is here, so you have possibilities for Instagram, okay. If you want to connect, that's the name, Ad Milior Inglés. I have a YouTube channel as well with the majority of the same content, and that's the name of the YouTube channel, and Twitter as well. I have the Twitter page. If we can see with the computer, it's a little slow, but you can see my name at the top, Ad Miliora1 for Twitter. Okay, I don't know why that's a delay with the computer, but that's my for example is the link. So that's the Instagram, and I'm investigating. This is a good opportunity for me. Twitter, that's the tag, and YouTube as well, that's possible. So that's very interesting and very good for me. Everything is free. I'm very happy to teach you for free at the moment. It's a possibility for me, and it's a good chance. If you want to support me at the end, or if you want to make a little contribution, that is possible, because probably in the future I will maybe need your support as well, okay. So here are the options if you want. You can see here we have in Spain, Bizum is very popular with the transfer with the telephone number. The second possibility is PayPal. The website, you enter the website and it's very simple to make a little contribution, or with your telephone you can scan the code also for a donation of €1 or €2 would be really great for me, or the bank details at the bottom. It's only an option, and it's a good help for me, and that's the page. So you can see the link, PayPal and support. and they give you a little option to support if you want, but again it's only optional because I'm very happy to help you at the moment, and hopefully the classes will help a little. Maybe it's very difficult to understand, but I hope they help. Okay, so let's begin with the introduction document. So every day I do the same, and I'm just going to share my screen for you so you can see. Okay, I'll share my screen, and yes, I think that's better. Yeah, okay, cool. So this document is very, very important. It's the introduction document, and probably a lot of you have seen it already, but I will be very quick just to try and explain. For me, there are three areas that are very important. The use of English is one area, the tenses or the times that we speak is another area, and other grammar concepts are very important to introduce and to explain, because during the class I use and I talk about grammar concepts a lot, and it's necessary to be familiar at the beginning with the concepts and the technical vocabulary before the class. Okay, so the first section, use of English, and I will zoom in to make it a little bit bigger. Basically, the use of English, for me, accents are very important. So we have different English around the world. In Dublin, there is a particular accent, and of course I have a particular accent, particularly with the U and the TH. That's very different, and it's possible in Dublin to have an issue with the phonetics for a different accent. So in Australia there are different accents, United States very, very different accents, United Kingdom, England, Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales, Ireland, very, very different, and New Zealand as well, Canada. So there's lots of different accents, and this is very important when you try to understand local people and local conversation. Okay. Two areas are very important. Phrasal verbs are a really, really big part of English. Basically, a phrasal verb is a verb with a preposition, and it's possible a second significance completely different from the literal significance. Okay, so one example is to look up. So look is the verb, and the majority of people understand look, and up is the preposition, but it's possible literal. For example, look up is very literal, but the second significance means to search or to look for information. So I am looking up your name, I am looking up your information, I am investigating, or I am searching for your details. So there's a second meaning or a second significance with phrasal verbs in general, and this is very interesting and a very important part of English. Okay, idioms, in my opinion, are very, very common in conversation, extremely normal in family situations, in friends situations, in series, in movies, very, very common and very fluent and very cohesive. So they are a big part of English also, and every day we try to analyze a list of idioms, and I try to help to identify the idioms. Okay, one example is a senior moment. So the expression, if I have a senior moment, the significance is maybe it's related to my memory, because if I am very old, the stereotype is maybe I forget or I lose my memory a little. That's the stereotype. So to have a senior moment is the significance maybe to forget something. That's a little example of an idiom. Okay, conversation and pronunciation is in the category of use of English, and to improve English and to use English, it's very important to practice if possible. There are lots of possibilities online, groups to practice English, teachers, even in reality, cafes, exchanges, intercambios. Conversation is good, important, and it helps if somebody corrects your conversation also. Okay, during this class it is possible to participate, so if you want to practice your conversation today, you can connect with the Zoom meeting, and I'll show you again the ID. So today, if you want to connect with the class to participate at the end, this is the details for Zoom. Okay, yesterday we spoke to Ivalo from Bulgaria, and he's living in London, and the day before to Natcha from Thailand and living in, I think, Europe. So a very good opportunity to practice if you want. Pronunciation is very big a very big area also. In English we have a lot of irregular phonetic pronunciation issues. In other languages, for example Spanish, I think is very phonetic, but in English we have a lot of irregular pronunciation phonetics, okay, situations. So during the class I try to help and I try to identify the pronunciation problems, okay? The next section is the times, or the different tenses that we speak. So when you speak, it does not matter the language, Japanese, Italian, French, Georgian, Bulgarian, Romanian, it's necessary to understand the concept of the time. Is it the present? Is it the past? Is it the future? So English is the same, and we have a few technical concepts. For example, the simple, present simple, one action that you do in the present. The past simple, one action that's completed or finished in the past. And the future simple, one action that you will do in the future. That's the concept of the simple. Okay, the regular in the past is normally ed. For example, the verb to look in the past is I looked, and the regular for the future is I will look. Okay, that's the regular. But we have a lot of irregular past simple. For example, the verb to eat, I ate. To do, I did. So we have a lot of irregular tenses, irregular constructions in the past tense. Okay, the future is two possibilities: I will go, I will eat, I will drink. The second possibility, I am going to eat, I am going to drink, I am going to eat. That's the simple. The next concept is the continuous, and I think in other languages you have the continuous also. In Spanish it's estoy bebiendo, estoy dormiendo, and in English it's very similar: I am eating. So the gerund in English is the ing. So the gerund is the ing, and the present continuous is necessary with the gerund. So the subject, the verb to be, and the gerund. I am eating. It's a continuous action in the present. The same concept in the past. We have a period of continuous action in the past, and the construction is the verb to be in the past. I was eating, I was drinking, I was speaking. Past continuous, present continuous, I am eating. Future continuous, I will be eating, I will be drinking, I will be speaking. Okay, that's the concept of the continuous. The next idea and the next concept is the perfect. So we have two possibilities, three for the perfect. We have the present perfect, which is an action that started in the past, it's finished, so it's a little period, but it's finished and it's related to the present. Okay, and the construction is the subject, I, you, he, she, we, you, they, subject, extra, auxiliary verb to have, and the participle, or the third column of the verb. So for example, I have eaten my breakfast. It started in the past and it's relevant to the present because I'm not hungry anymore. So it started in the past, it's finished, but it's relevant to the present because at this moment I am not hungry. Then we have the past perfect, which is a period in the past, usually before a past simple action. Okay, and the construction is similar, except have is in the past. I had eaten. Okay, so I have eaten is the present perfect, and the past perfect, I had eaten my breakfast when my friend contacted me. So usually the past perfect is before a past simple action in the past. That's the difference. Okay, it is possible the future perfect, which is a little advanced, but the construction is I will have eaten, I will have gone, I will have spoken. Okay, so it's just important to introduce a little the vocabulary and the technical vocabulary for the times, because when I explain the class it is important that you're familiar a little with the concept. Okay, the next one is the infinitive, and the infinitive in English basically is the base of the verb and the foundation of the verb, and the construction usually is to eat, to go, to drink, to have, to meet, to talk. That is the infinitive. So that is the concept during the class. When I speak about infinitive, I mean to eat, to drink, to go. Okay, conditionals are very important, and the theory in the book for the conditional is very hard and a little heavy for the conditional. We have the zero conditional, first conditional, second conditional, third conditional, and mixed conditional, and the theory and the rules are a little strict and a little difficult, but in reality it's a bit more fluent and a bit more flexible. Basically it's related to if. So usually if it rains, I will go to the city centre. if I spoke to my friend yesterday, I would have said something. So it depends on if, and it depends on the different time. Okay, that's the big importance of the conditional. The next concept is the active and the passive. So the active is usually the subject, the verb, and the object. That's the typical structure of the active. And here's one example. The man is the subject, kick is the verb in the past, the man kicked, and the object is the ball. And then to create the passive, you change the position. So you put the ball first, and you introduce the extra verb to be, and it's necessary the participle as well. So that's one example of the active. The man kicked the ball, and the passive, the ball was kicked by the man. It's important, and particularly in exams, if you are trying to impress or you are trying to show a good level of English, it's a good idea to use the conditional, the passive, and it's very advanced and very impressive. That's the reason it's important, in my opinion. Also in general conversation, they are very typical also. Okay? The next area are just other grammar points and other grammar topics that I mentioned during the class. So for example, a noun or a substantive basically is a person, a place, or a thing is a noun or a substantive. The majority of things in English are nouns or substantives. For example, pens, computers, doors, cups, they are substantives. And for a substantive or a noun in English, we have an article. Okay? And in English we have an indefinite article and a definite article. This is the indefinite article a, and the definite article is the house. Okay? There is one rule: when the word begins with a vowel, a, e, I, o, u, it's necessary an. That's the general rule when the word begins with a vowel. So that's the concept of the noun and the substantive and an article. Okay? In relation to nouns and substantives, we have the concept of countable and uncountable. Is it possible to count the substantive, or is it not possible? For example, bottle. 1 bottle, 2 bottles, 3 bottles. Yes, so a bottle is a countable noun. Water. Is it possible to count water? 1 water, 2 water? No, not really. We count 1 bottle, 1 glass, 1 litre, but water, it's not possible. So water is uncountable. Chocolate, air, money, they are uncountable, and this is important in relation to how much and how many. So how much is related to uncountable, how much water, how much chocolate, how much air, how much money, and how many is related to countable. How many days, how many people. That's just an important idea to consider. Okay? The adjective. So basically an adjective describes the substantive. We have a substantive, we have a noun, but you need more information. And the adjective is to give more information to the substantive. The house, okay, so the is the article, house is the substantive, big is the adjective. The big house, the red house, the old house. So the position of the adjective is before the substantive, and that's very important, the concept of the adjective. I think in other languages the adjective is after the substantive, but in English it's before. Okay? The adverb describes the verb. So the verb to run, to eat, to talk, to drink, they are verbs, and the adverb usually describes the verb. To run quickly, to talk slowly, to meet shortly. Okay, so normally the ly here is the suffix, or the end of the word is the ly, and that usually represents the adverb. Okay, so for example, quickly, slowly, softly. In Spanish it's mente, suavemente, lentamente, rapidamente. So mente is the equivalent of the adverb in English. Okay. Modal verbs. So every day we speak about the modal verbs, and we have a list of modal verbs here. For example, can, could, may, might, shall, should. Okay, that's a list. Basically, can is related to ability. I can play the guitar. I can run a marathon. It's my ability. Okay. Could, may, and might are possibilities and options. I could go to the city centre. I may go to the city centre. I might go to the city centre. And they are practically the same. In reality, in use, they are practically the same, but possibly may and might are a little more polite and a little more formal. That's the only real difference between could, may, and might for possibility. Okay. Also, the for are for questions for permission. Okay. For example, could I use your computer? Could I contact my friend? May I enter the room? It's a question for permission, and the four are possible in that situation. Okay. Shall is probably older English and a little bit more formal, and it's connected to should and will, but it's generally a little more formal and more polite. So shall we go to the cinema? Shall we have a coffee is a question. Will we have a coffee or should we have a coffee? Should is usually for recommendation and advice. So if I want to give you a recommendation, normally I use the verb should. You should speak to your friend. You should watch this movie. You should enter the city. Okay, so it's my advice or my recommendation. And the ought to is the next one. It's a bit more formal also, but the pronunciation of the G is silent. Ought to is exactly the same for recommendation and advice. You ought to go to the cinema. You ought to watch this movie. It's a little more formal and a little more polite, and the G is silent. Okay. Must is an obligation and you have no choice. We have two possibilities for obligation. You must and you have to. They are the typical verbs that we use for obligation. You have no choice. Okay, so you must wear a mask. You have to wear a mask. And they are the most common modal verbs. The rule, the big important rule after the modal verb, the next verb is the infinitive, to eat, to drink, but it's necessary to remove to. Okay, so the correct structure is can, go, might, have, may, see. So modal and the next verb in the infinitive, but necessary to eliminate to. And we had an example yesterday with Ivalo. Ivalo said, I can to do. And that's an extremely common, extremely frequent mistake or error. So the rule after the modal, the verb is in the infinitive, but we eliminate to. Okay? The construction of the modals in the past is the modal should, can, may, might plus have and the participle. So I may have gone to the cinema yesterday. I might have gone to the cinema. I could have gone. So that's the typical construction of the past. It's a little technical, and this grammar is just a little introduction. But of course, if you want to study grammar, it's really important that you prepare yourself and that you study grammar yourself. And I recommend two websites that are very good. The Cambridge Grammar website is excellent, number one, and the second website is the British Council Grammar website. So for me, they are the two very, very important websites for you to prepare and to study. The British Council Grammar website and the Cambridge Grammar website, for me, they are excellent to prepare, because today is just a little introduction, and of course yourself, I think it's necessary to study alone and to prepare in general. Okay, and if you have any questions in particular, you can ask me and I can try and give you my opinion. Okay, prepositions are so important in English. We have maybe 150 prepositions in English, and basically they are related to position, movement and direction. Okay, so I speak at the moment, I speak, but the direction, I speak to you. I travel, viajar in Espanol, I travel, but the preposition is very important in direction. I travel to Spain, I travel to Limerick, I travel to Brazil. So to is one example of the preposition, but we have maybe 150 prepositions, and this is just a little list of the prepositions. For example, my hand. The ball is under my hand, over my hand, beside my hand, in front of, on my hand. So we have a lot of prepositions, and they are so important for position, direction and movement, but also for phrasal verbs. Phrasal verbs use prepositions all the time, and they're extremely important. Also, prepositions are probably associated with emotion. For example, up is positive, up is happy, up is creation, down is negative, down is sad, down is to destroy. There's usually an association with emotion and sentiment and feeling with the preposition. Okay, so that is important to consider as well. The next area of pronouns, so basically the difference between my pen, your pen, his pen, her pen, or the pen is mine, the pen is yours, the pen is his, the pen is hers, the pen is ours, or give the pen to me, give the pen to you, give the pen to him. So these three categories are typically confused a lot. So if you want to improve quickly your English, I recommend you focus and try to concentrate on this area, because they are so commonly confused and it's a typical translation problem. So I recommend you focus on this area. Again, so this is the possessive pronoun. For example, my hat, your hat, his hat, but the hat is mine, the hat is yours, the hat is his. So you need to be clear. Obviously not today, it's impossible to understand everything in relation to this, but you need to be clear with this topic, okay? Also, the difference between this, that, these and those is basically connected to singularity and plural and position. For example, this pen here, that pen away, these pens here, and those pens away. Depends on position and it depends on singularity or plural. Telephone, this telephone here, that telephone there, these telephones here, and those telephones in the different position. So it is very important. It's simple, but it is a common confusion. So again, to be very clear, you need to be very precise with this information, okay? Another important point is the difference between another, other, the other and the others, and every day I try to identify this point because it is important. For example, another is before the substantive and it's normally singular. Another day, another week, another person, another pen, another telephone, singular substantive, but other is generally for the plural substantive. Other people, other days, other weeks, other years. That's the general difference, okay? There is a possibility the other, and when you have a choice between two options or two things, do you want this coffee or do you want the other coffee? So the other is particularly in relation to selection or choice of two things, okay? The others with the S is usually the group of people. So do you want to come to the cinema with us, or do you want to come to the cinema with the others? So the others is a group of people in plural. So it is very important, the difference, another, other, the other and the others. It sounds very similar, but there's a big difference in the detail, and the detail in English is really the key. In relation to the detail, the suffix and the prefix is a gigantic, enormous help to identify the structure of the word. For example, the word, is it a verb, is it an adjective, is it a noun, is it the adverb? The suffix and the prefix of the word is a big indicator, a big help to identify the structure of the word. Okay, so for example, if the word has the suffix ance, for example, in the importance, normally it's the substantive, okay? If the word has the suffix ize, normally it's possible the verb to realize, to fantasize, to normalize. So the ize is a typical suffix and it represents the verb, okay? able, suffix usually represents adjective, okay? So this is a very important area for English, and it's a big issue, it's a big problem, because a lot of people make the error, a lot of people make the mistake with the suffixes. A lot of people confuse the noun, the adjective, and it's quite obvious, it's very obvious when we hear this. So for me, it's a big area, the concentration of the suffix and the prefix, okay? For example, ly is the suffix typical for the adverb mente in Espanol, quickly, slowly, adverb, okay? Good. Then we have just linkers. So linkers are very important as well. Conjunctions are linkers to link the sentences, to make them more cohesive and to make them more fluent. And we have a lot of conjunctions or linkers. And for example, and, but, however, although, furthermore, as well as. There's a lot of different linkers, and there's differences in relation to the formality and informality. We have some general and very informal, and we have some very formal and very polite. And during the class, I try to identify the linkers. Okay? Okay, good. So that's a general introduction for today. Of course, specific vocabulary is very important. So if you work in a shop, for example, a clothes shop, of course, specific vocabulary for a shop, specific vocabulary for clothes is very important for you. If you work as a doctor, specific vocabulary for the hospital, for medical situations is specific for you, and that is important preparation also, okay? and it's something I can help a little, but of course it's probably very individual to learn. Okay, writing is a big part of English, so writing is very important, and with me, if you want to practice your writing, you can send me some writing and I can correct your writing, and if you give me permission, I can show everybody the corrections, and for me this would be a fantastic way for everybody to learn. So if you are brave and if you want to send me some writing, for me it's a fantastic opportunity. Okay, yesterday somebody contacted me with the same question, so I'm very happy and open to receive the writing. Okay, exam preparation is very important as well. So exams are very typical in English to prepare. The Cambridge exams, first certificate, advanced certificate, proficiency, also the IELTS exams are very typical, and hopefully soon I can try to prepare some specific classes for exams. That's a possibility. Okay, so that is the introduction, and every day it's very important, and I hope you keep the vocabulary in your mind and the concepts in your mind, because during the class now I want to read an article and I want to identify the different parts, the phrasal verbs, the idioms, the prepositions, the past perfect, the present perfect, the modal verbs, the continuous, the linkers. We have a lot of technical vocabulary that is important to identify during the class. Okay, so yesterday we started this article, and basically I will refresh and give you the story of the article. The context is a boy from Croatia travelled to Ireland, and he was looking for a new opportunity, a new job coming to Ireland, similar to people from Brazil coming to Ireland, people from Spain coming to Ireland, very similar, or to the United Kingdom, similar situations. And at the beginning, this boy found no job, had a very difficult situation, so he had to stay on the street. He had no home, he was homeless, and this story explains a little, but in the end he recovered and he found a house, he found a job, and he's working at the moment for a charity. But the vocabulary is very good and the context is good also. So yesterday we began with 3 paragraphs, and this is the boy. So we began with the first paragraph, second paragraph, third paragraph, and we stopped yesterday. It has a similar culture to Croatia, and today I will continue with the next 2 or 3 paragraphs, and the same structure. I will read for pronunciation, and after the pronunciation and after the paragraphs I will analyze the vocabulary. Okay, so here's a first example of a linker, a cohesive. However, in Spanish it's sin embargo. So here is the first example of the linker or the conjunction. Okay, so however, Bobanak quickly learned finding a job wasn't as easy as he had thought. Okay, already you can see a lot of detail. So quickly is the adverb connected to the verb to learn. So learn is aprender, and here it's in the past, learned, and quickly is the adverb to describe the verb. Okay, finding a job wasn't as easy, he had thought. Here is an example of the past perfect. So the verb is to think, the past is I thought, and the past perfect is I had thought, you had thought, he had thought. Okay, and remember the past perfect is usually the period in the past before another action in the past simple, and in this case the next action is to find the job. So that's a very good example of the past perfect in use in reality. Okay, the next paragraph. I was homeless initially because I couldn't find a job, because I had no CV. I stayed on the streets with my brother. We stayed in Stephen's Green and Phoenix Park, in one of the bushes there. Okay, that wasn't an ideal scenario. It wasn't what we wanted, so we continued looking for work, but it wasn't easy, he says. Okay, and I will continue with the next one. The winter. Bobanak says being homeless is particularly challenging in winter. The hardest thing is to stay positive. Your basic need for warmth is not being met, so it's very taxing on the mind. You've nothing to look forward to. It's cold constantly. You're isolated from society. It's a deadly combination, he says. So a very good article, very good quality writing, very clear, but also very good vocabulary. Okay, and here I want to show you the important vocabulary. So this is yesterday, and today, as I said, however is the linker. In Spanish it's sin embargo. Okay, so however is very important. So the second paragraph, could not find. So remember, the modal is possibility or an option. So I could is the modal, possibility. In the past I could not, okay, and the verb to find. But remember the rule, after the modal the next verb is the infinitive, to find, but we need to eliminate to. That's the rule. So here we have two verbs, I could and to find. So because it's a modal, the next verb we eliminate to. And it's the past, I could not, okay? The rule in the past, the exception for could, I could go or I could have gone, and the past I couldn't find. In this case it's the past, okay? No, so the difference between no and not is very important. No is generally before the substantive or generally before the noun. No time, no money, no energy, no food. No is typical with the substantive, and not is typical with the adjective. Not happy, not tired, not hungry. That's the big difference. So no is before the substantive and not is before the adjective, but also the verb. I do not want, I do not like. So not is the verb and the adjective. Okay, so that is important here. And the CV is the curriculum vitae, so resume. In the United States it's probably more typical to say the resume, but in maybe the UK it's more CV, and in Ireland probably it's a mix, but CV is very typical in Ireland, okay? Stay, so the verb is to stay, is to remember the difference. To keep, to stay and to maintain are very similar, but stay is physical location, and here it's regular. So the present, I stay, and the past, ed, I stayed. The preposition for the street normally is on the street, okay? Because remember, on is typically for a surface, on the table, on the wall. So typically a surface, we use the preposition on, and the street technically of course is a surface, so it's necessary on, okay? And that's the significance and explanation for the preposition here. With my brother we stayed in Stephen's Green. So Stephen's Green is a park, so a park, it's necessary in the park because it's enclosed, so you're in the park. You're also on the street or on the grass, but technically you're in the park. And Stephen's Green is a famous park in Ireland. It's in the city centre, okay? And the Phoenix Park, in one of the bushes. So this is probably the not difficult vocabulary, but it's very specific vocabulary. A bush is typical for the garden. So in the garden you have the grass, but you also have a bush. A bush is at the side and it's very heavy. In Espanol it's arbusto. Estoy más a gusto que en arbusto. So it's arbusto in Spanish, but in English it's a bush, okay? And the translation in other languages here, I'm going to show you the translation because it is important. And here I have the dictionary. So a bush in Arabic, Bulgarian, Croatian, very similar. Well, maybe that's an error, but apparently it's the same. Arbusto. Okay, so that's the specific vocabulary for the bush, and here it's the plural. So the plural is necessary, the es for the plural. So he stayed in, and the preposition is necessary in the bush, okay? It's possible metaphorically also for my hair. If my hair grows and grows, my hair is like a bush, okay? So it's possibly used in other contexts as well. The next one, wanted. So this is another linker. So the first linker is however, but the next linker is so, and it's usually for the consequences. For example, I am very hungry, so I could eat a lot of food. So is connecting the next sentence as the consequence, okay? I am very tired, so I need a coffee, for example. Okay, so here's a very good example of the linker for the next action is the consequence. But be careful because so is flexible. So is possible a linker, but it's also possible before an adjective to intensify. So happy, so tired, to intensify the adjective. And the third possibility for so is substitution. So I hope we win the football match, and you say I hope so, and that's the substitution for my sentence. So there's 3 or 4 possibilities for uses for so, and it is important and flexible, okay? But here it's just a linker for the consequence. Look for, so the preposition to look for, the preposition for is generally connected with look. Look for a job, look for a house, look for food, look for. That's the typical preposition you combine. Okay, but it wasn't easy. Okay, and now we move to the next one. So the verb is to say, but remember the third person normally in English has the extra S. There are a lot of verbs, a lot of situations with the third person, it's necessary S. For example, say. I say, you say, he says, she says. Okay, so the S is important for the third person. I do, you do, she does, he does. I go, you go, he goes. So the third person is important, and here is an example of the third person with the S. Okay, challenging. So this is very important vocabulary. A challenge in Espanol is un reto. Okay, so a challenge is un reto in Espanol. It's like a difficult situation or a difficult problem. So to find a job is very difficult. To find a job is a challenge. Okay, the verb to challenge. I challenge you to a competition. I challenge you to a football match. I give you a challenge. It's the specific verb as well. It's to confront maybe. So I challenge the problem. I challenge the day. And probably it's similar to confront, but the substantive is a challenge, which is like a competition or something difficult. Okay, and here it is the adjective. I think here it's the adjective, challenging situation, a challenging job, very difficult. Okay, in is typical for the season, in summer, in winter, in autumn, in spring. So for the season, it's typically in. That's the preposition that's important. And of course, you need to be very clear with the preposition for the day, for the year. So for example, the year in 2021, in 1919. So for the year, it's in, and for the day, it's on Monday, on Tuesday, on Wednesday. Also the date, on the 26th, on the 27th. So the prepositions are very important. But evening and morning, we say in. In the morning, in the evening, in the afternoon. Probably because the period is contained, so the afternoon is limited, and you are in the afternoon. The same, the evening is limited, so it's in the evening, and the same with the morning. Okay, so the prepositions of course are so important in relation to time, and the seasons we say in winter because it's limited, in. Okay, the hardest thing, so here the adjective is hard, the situation is very difficult, it's very hard. The comparative is harder, so the situation is hard, the situation is harder than last year, but this is the hardest. So this structure is very important of the comparative and the superlative for the adjective. Happy, happier, the happiest. Okay, tired, and I think you can say more tired or the tiredest or the most tired. So sometimes it's irregular and it depends on the syllable, and in reality it's a little more flexible, but the rules are sometimes a bit more strict, but in reality it's a little more flexible in general. Okay, and this is interesting because in Espanol es necesario para decir el más duro es, el más difícil es, pero en inglés es normal y importante para decir el más importante cosa es, el más difícil cosa es. So cosa siempre es importante en esta estructura. So the hardest thing is to say, and that's simple and it's detailed, but it's very, very important. Okay, is to stay positive, and here we have the verb to stay positive, and here it's possible to keep positive. To stay positive, to keep positive, exactly the same in this case. Okay, your basic need or your basic necessity, so the verb is to need. I need food, I need chocolate, I need coffee, I need, but the substantive is a need. So I have a need for chocolate, I have a need for coffee, and here it's the substantive. So your, my, your, his, her, it's the possession. Okay, so my need, your need, and here we have another adjective, your basic need for. So that's the typical preposition. This is very important as well because warm is the adjective. You feel very warm, you feel very comfortable. Adjective, but the substantive is the warmth. Okay, and you need to be clear with this family. So warm is the adjective and the substantive is the warmth. Okay, and the verb is to warm, but we have other words that are very similar as well. So for example, long is the adjective, and the substantive I hope that you maybe, if you want to write in the video, if you want to try to answer the question, so long is the adjective, what do you think is the substantive of long? Okay, I have another question as well, strong. What do you think is the substantive of strong? And also wide is an adjective in English, for example, amplio in Espanol. So this is just an example of the important suffix study and the irregularity in English. So long is the adjective, the noun is length, okay, and strong is the adjective, and the noun for strong is strength. So you need to be very, very clear with this group. And wide is amplio, okay, in Espanol, amplio, but the substantive is the width. So the road, O'Connell Street, you have the bridge, the width of O'Connell Street is the substantive. So this family, this group is very important for the suffix and the pronunciation and the detail and the spelling, okay? There is a verb to widen, okay, that is a verb to widen, and the verb here is to strengthen, and to lengthen is the verb here as well. Okay, so it's important detail, and warmth is the substantive. Okay, it's like high is the adjective, height is the substantive. Yeah, very, very important for sure. So we have a lot of little groups like this in English, and this is just a little group. Okay, so here the substantive is warmth. And also met, so this is probably confusing in the sentence, but it is very important because the verb is to meet. You meet your friend, you meet your family, to meet. The past simple is met. So I meet you in the present, M-E-E-T, but the past I met. Okay, so the verb is to meet, and the past is met, and it's possible with your need. So you have a need, a necessity, and you need to meet your necessity. You need to meet your need. Okay, so every day I have a necessity for coffee, I have a necessity for food, and every day I need to meet that necessity. Okay, and that's the perfect example. And here it's in also the present continuous, the present continuous, or maybe the passive. So this structure is with the verb to be, is being in the present continuous, and the negative and the participle. So it looks like it's probably the passive. Okay, remember the active and the passive. That's a complicated structure in the text, but it's a good example of fluent English. The next example is very important as well, because tax is related to the government. Your salary, you receive your salary, you receive your income, and it's necessary to pay tax. Impuesto in Espanol. So that is your tax. But in English, it's a verb also. So geography or Japanese, to study Japanese, taxes me. It's very challenging. It's a tax. It's very difficult. So the verb to tax, the significance is it takes your energy. It takes your motivation. So it's difficult. And that's the verb as well. So to tax somebody is to make the situation difficult for somebody. And here, very, very good vocabulary, very good English. The basic necessity for warmth, looking to be warm, takes a lot of energy, takes a lot of motivation from your mind. Okay? Very, very good English. And taxing is typical with the preposition on, taxing on your mind, taxing on your body, taxing on your motivation. That's just a typical connection with the preposition. Okay? The next expression is more general and very common and very important, to look forward to. The verb to look forward is the preposition direction, forward, backward, sideward. So to look forward has the significance for motivation. For example, today is Tuesday and you are looking forward to the weekend. You have a lot of motivation, a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of excitement for the weekend. I'm looking forward to my holiday. I'm looking forward to the weekend. I'm looking forward to next week. It's when you have a lot of motivation and a lot of desire for the future. Como tengo ganas in Espanol. Okay, and that's the typical structure, look forward to. And here you have nothing to look forward to, so you have no motivation, you have nothing exciting in the future. Okay? Isolated, so the verb and the pronunciation is to isolate. In Espanol is isolado, pero in English is isolate, and the I is very important for pronunciation. Idea, Ireland, Wi-Fi, they're very important pronunciations. In Espanol it's idea, Irlanda, Wi-Fi. So the I is very important, and here It's to isolate is the verb, and the typical preposition is from. So I am isolated from the group, you are isolated from the person, isolated from. Okay, afraid, so the subject is you, the verb is to be, and remember normally with the verb to be it's necessary the adjective normally, so afraid is the adjective, but this family is very important as well because afraid is the adjective, but the verb, what do you think is the verb? If you want to write in the comment to answer the question, so afraid is the adjective, what do you think is the verb for the family afraid? Okay, so I'll write it here and you can write the answer in the comment. So afraid is the adjective, the noun and the verb. So the verb is to fear. Probably that is the most appropriate and the most typical verb for this family. So the verb is to fear. For example, spiders, I fear spiders. Verb, I fear spiders. But the adjective, I am afraid of. And typical preposition with the adjective afraid of spiders, afraid of heights. And here it's the verb fear. The substantive, so also in the comment, what do you think is the substantive for this family? Okay, so the substantive is the fear. So that's little detail, but it's very important and it is commonly used. We use this all the time. We have another verb as well, to scare, which is a different verb. Okay, the substantive is a scare, and the adjective, anybody know what the adjective is? The adjective is scared or scary. We have two possibilities, scared or I am scared means that I am afraid, same significance, but the situation is scary or the movie is scary. So the difference between scared and scary, okay, my pronunciation maybe is funny for some people with scared, but scared and scary are two adjectives. And again, you need to remember the difference with the two adjectives. Interesting, interested. Bored, boring. Excited, exciting. Very, very important difference. For example, I am excited. It's my sensation, my feeling. But the movie is exciting. The holiday, the trip is exciting. So it depends if it's your sensation or if it's describing the other object. Okay, bored. I am bored. That's my sensation. But the movie is boring. So the difference between the ed and the ing, very big difference, and a very common and very obvious error when it's a mistake. Okay, so here it's the adjective. You are afraid of frostbite. So frost is the noun and the verb is to bite. So the noun frost, for example, if the morning is very, very cold, last week in Ireland it was very, very cold. This week it's better and it's warmer, but last week when it's very cold in the morning you have frost. So the water turns to ice and on the ground it's frost. Okay, the adjective is frosty, and here frostbite is a medical term when you are in the cold for too long. When you stay in the cold condition for too long, the feeling or the sensation is frostbite, very severe and very dangerous. And here, if you stay on the street all night, if you stay in the park sleeping homeless, you have a big danger, a big possibility of frostbite. And the verb to bite is morder in Espanol, bite the apple, bite the chocolate. Okay, so here it's one substantive together, frostbite. Your limbs, very good, important substantive as well. So your limb is maybe your arm and your leg, that are your limbs. So your body is here, but your limbs are your arms and your legs, your limbs. Okay, and we have a few expressions, arms and legs. We have a few expressions in relation to limb. So to put your limbs on the line is possible, maybe. To put your limbs on the line has the significance a very risky or a very dangerous situation. So if you put your limb on the line means you can lose it or you can keep it. It's a very dangerous moment. So if your limbs are on the line, it's possible you can lose your limb. Okay, your reputation is on the line. It's possible you can lose your reputation. So to put your limbs on the line is to enter a dangerous or a difficult situation. Okay, feet. So your feet, this is very simple but very important. Singular, 1 foot, but 2 feet, plural. It's irregular and it's a common confusion and you need to be very, very clear. Okay, so 1 foot, and 2 feet, plural, irregular plural, okay? Blood, no problem, so blood is sangre, but the verb, you need to remember the family. Blood is the noun, so that blood. Adjective is bloody, okay, and the verb is to bleed. That's probably the difficulty with this family. So blood is the noun, okay, so the blood is the noun, sangre, and adjective is bloody. For example, bloody nose, I have a bloody nose, adjective. And this is also typical in English in very informal situations. For example, the weather is bloody terrible, which means really terrible, absolutely terrible. How are you? I'm bloody happy, I'm really happy, I'm totally happy. So bloody is possible in conversation, very frequent, which has the significance absolutely or really. I'm bloody tired, I'm really tired. Okay, so it's extremely common and you need to pay attention to try and catch it. But in general, it's related to the blood. If you have a bloody nose, that's literal. Okay, but do be conscious of the other significance. And the verb is to bleed. Okay, but there's another context with the verb to bleed. And for example, the company. If the company is losing a lot of money, the company is not successful and the company is losing a lot of money, it's possible metaphorically to say the company is bleeding money. So if you're bleeding, you're losing blood, but in the metaphor for the company, you're bleeding money. Okay, that's one context. The second context is in relation to young ability or young talent. For example, the football team. So the football team has the senior professionals, but the football team introduce the young talent because they want the young talent to be familiar with the performance and the team. So it's possible to bleed the person, to bleed the young talent, which is to introduce and to let them begin. Okay, so it is important and flexible in different contexts. And here's the substantive. So the blood circulates, the verb to circulate, substantive, the blood, subject, circulates is the verb, back to is the movement for the preposition, back to your organs. So it moves and it comes back, and your organs are the important vital parts of your body. Okay, again, and the preposition, you wake up, so wake up. Okay, so that's a very good analysis of a typical normal article from the newspaper. It's very good English, good quality vocabulary, and lots of important topics from the grammar. So first was the introduction for the technical grammar concepts, and then we had the article to analyze the vocabulary. Okay, so that is sufficient for today in the vocabulary. If you want on the Skype, or sorry, the Zoom, now is a good opportunity. If you want to connect by Zoom and to participate in the class to practice your speaking, I think now is a good time and it's available if you want. I don't think we have anybody waiting, but if you want to join the class, it's possible by now. We can practice some speaking if you want. For me, it's perfect. Anybody, somebody living in Ireland. Yesterday we spoke to a person in London and also a person from Indonesia, but it's possible as well. The code for the meeting is here, and if you feel like you want to participate, perfect, and you can join and I can have a chat with you if you want. Okay, so that is possible. I will continue this here a little bit, and so that is the article from the newspaper, and that's probably sufficient for today. So again, thank you very much. If nobody wants to connect, that's fine, but thank you very much for today. It was a pleasure. Difficult vocabulary, difficult expressions. I know we have the video as well, but I think that's sufficient work for today. I think that is a lot. And yeah, so I'll wait maybe one more minute if you want to connect by the Zoom. If not, no problem. Maybe nobody is watching, maybe nobody wants to participate, no problem. Okay, so have a good day, and remember, everything is free. If you want to support me, if you want to make a little donation, it's possible here by Bizum in Spain. If you want to make a little support for me, it would be great. Or PayPal, that's an option as well, or the bank details if you prefer, but it's only an option. Okay, so thank you again, have a great day, and tomorrow we will continue again. Okay, so see you later, and thank you so much. Bye bye.